Some of you know, and some of you are going to know, that my brother Mark, at the age of 50, fell out of a tree and broke his back. Oh. Yeah, ooh. It's T, 10, 11, 12, L, 1, and 2, and one of them shattered, and they took the fragments and then they fused the other ones, and I met him in the emergency room, and I noticed the staff was very careful not to be shaking their heads, but the message was clear: life-changing injury, with the emphasis on life-changing. And they pretty much told Mark that he would never get out of bed again. But this is what happens. I mean, my brother is proof that highly, expensively educated people don't know everything. They certainly didn't know my brother. When he was in the hospital, I would go every day to visit him, and I would take a dry erase marker and I would ask my brother, "What's your commitment?" And he would answer, "To run and swim the beach." So I'd take my dry erase marker and I'd write it on the message board so he could see it. It was visible to him every day. Then he went to rehab, and I waltzed into his rehab room with my dry erase marker, and I said, "What's your commitment?" He said, "To run and swim the beach." And I wrote it on this board that I thought was a dry erase board. But now everybody in room 212A has a commitment to run and swim the beach. It was permanent. It's been 5 years since he did that, and I'm happy to say that at this time, my brother is either walking with a walker, or he can walk with braces. He rides an adult tricycle, so he gets out in the world. He occasionally goes deep sea fishing, which was his profession before he fell out of the tree. He even has these skateboard platforms that he puts on his feet, and then he swishes down the beach, and he can move at a pretty good clip. So all this time in the last 5 years, he's been working on his legs and getting his legs moving and getting all those body functions that are associated with his lower body moving. But this summer, he's decided to work on his core. He's decided to work on his abs, and he sent me this video. And Andrew, if you just double click on there, it should play. So like, here he goes, here he goes. You're good. Oh. Get those legs out. Get those legs out. And then he laughs. Yeah. So here's my brother with his cat. Anyway, he sent me this video, and I texted him back, and I said, wherever Dad is in the universe, whatever incarnation Dad is in, because our dad's been dead for like 20 years. I said, whatever incarnation our dad is in, he better watch out. Because pretty soon, you're going to be the strongest man in the world. And because, you know, my brother, when he was little, he would tell anybody he saw, my dad is the strongest man in the world. My dad is the strongest man in the world. And did you ever know anybody like that growing up? My dad is the strongest man in the world. Maybe you said about your own dad. I don't know. But I mean, he meant it in the best way. So I texted him, I said, you better watch out, because pretty soon you're going to be the strongest man in the world. And you know what he said back to me? I am. No, he said, don't you mess with my dad. My dad is still the strongest man in the world. But it takes a strength. I mean, I look at my brother and I see unshakable conviction, unshakable commitment, and unshakable faith. It is these qualities that my brother has that have allowed him to live in what Unity calls righteousness. Unity, righteousness is when we disregard appearances and we bring our minds back into alignment with God. We bring our minds back into alignment with principle. When we live from our divine nature and we only identify from that divine identity, that's what righteousness is. When we live that way, the Father and I, as Jesus says, are one. He said that in the book of John. The Father and I are one. And I want you to look at this, because in sign language, this means really good friends. It's like besties. But I like it because there's no space in between those fingers. The Father and I are one. Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsitt says, you are not divine potential, but the fullness of divine nature. In any moment, you can realize and live from your divine identity. So when we walk around saying, yeah, I have the potential to be whatever, we're not living in our divine nature. When we live as the fullness of our divine identity, that's when we are one with the Father. That's when we're one with God. That's when we're fully fused with divine mind, living our ultimate. It's up to us to identify it, to name it, and to claim it. There's a story in Hebrew scriptures about a man who finally figured this out. It's about, his name is Naaman, and it's told in the book of 2 Kings. So the story is about Naaman, and Naaman was a commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man and in high favor with his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Aram. The man, though a mighty warrior, suffered from leprosy. On one of their raids, the Arameans had taken a young girl from Israel, from the tribe of Israel, captive. And this young girl was serving Naaman's wife. And what she said was, if only my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He, and this he would be Elisha the prophet, he would cure him of his leprosy. So off Naaman goes to Samaria with all his chariots and all his horses. And because he was a favorite of the king, he also went with an offering of 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of garments. And he arrives at the place where Elisha lives, and Elisha doesn't even come out the door. Elisha sends a messenger, and the messenger goes out there and tells Naaman, oh yeah, all you need to do is go down to the river Jordan and bathe in the muddy water 7 times, and you will be, your flesh will be restored, and you would become clean. Well, Naaman, he has a fit. He's furious. And he says, doesn't this Elijah person realize who I am? Doesn't this Elijah person know that I'm somebody important and valuable? Doesn't this Elijah person, I feel insulted, because he could have given me something that was dangerous and daring to do in order to heal my body. But no, he gives me something simple and stupid like going to play in the river. How dare he tell me something like that? And then, of all rivers, the river Jordan. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? And it was Naaman's servants that calmed him down. It was Naaman's servants who invited him to think differently. It's Naaman's servants who invited him to let go of the belief that healing had to be hard. It was Naaman's servants who invited him to let go of the misconception that only somebody outside of you could heal you. It was Naaman's servants who convinced him to go down to the river Jordan, which Naaman did, and bathe 7 times. Now, can you imagine Naaman going down to the river? 7 times. But he did, and he was healed, and he became clean. This story is ripe with metaphysical interpretation. It is full of it. And metaphysically, when we look at a story, every aspect of that story is something that is actually inside of us. So when we look at Naaman's name, it means harmony. Each of us has the capacity to take where we are, to take what's happening in our lives and come into harmony with our divine nature, to come into harmony with God. The Father and I are one, in harmony. The next thing is 7 means completion, and the River Jordan represents life. So if we want to completely live our life, then we need to be in life. We need to fully immerse ourselves completely in life in order to have that full and happy and whole and peaceful and joyful life. The mud represents a childlike attitude. How many of you played in the mud when you were little? Mud pies, mud balls, mud puddles. When we have that childlike attitude, Jesus says we can enter the kingdom of heaven. Unless you become like a little child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. And when we're in the kingdom of heaven, we're one with God. The Father and I are one. The servants represent directive thoughts. And I love this because the servants are the ones who are directing our thoughts back to righteousness, directing our thoughts back to our divine identity, directing our thoughts back to our divine nature. They're saying, let go of those misconceptions and come back to God where the Father and I are one. It's a powerful, powerful story for us. For us. Linda Martella-Whitsitt goes on to say, you do not have to acquire your divine identity. You only have to be mature in your understanding of this true identity and claim it. Well, gee, great, thanks. How about giving us another spiritually divine paradox, where we have to have the attitude of a little child and we have to be mature at the same time. When we have the attitude of a little child, we get to say no to negative thoughts. We get to play with the thoughts that are in our mind. We can tell those naysayers that saying we can't possibly manifest what we want to manifest. We get to say, get out and stay out to negative thinking. Try that. Get out and stay out. Okay, get your hand up there so you can karate chop it. Get out and stay out. Now, if you want to have an attitude like a little child, you have to do it like this. Get out, stay out, nanny boo boo. You know what's coming next. Together, get out, stay out, nanny boo boo. And then we have to be mature. And then we have to have ourselves totally grounded in our conviction, in our commitment, and our faith. To be mentally mature and strong takes some behavior characteristics. And the first one is don't waste time feeling sorry for yourself. Don't waste time feeling sorry for yourself. Stuff happens. The light turns green, the light turns red. Accept where you are. Just accept where you are, because these things happen. Number 2, don't waste energy on things that you can't control. Spiritually mature and strong people don't complain about losing luggage or traffic jams. They don't have time for that. They're too busy worrying and thinking and putting their attention on what they can control. Sometimes the only thing that we can control is our attitude. And attitude is everything. Number 3, don't dwell on the past. That means don't rehash the event or the events that you consider horrible. Don't live in the fantasy and the memory of your glory days, but live in the present moment. Make plans for the future, but live in this moment. Number 4 is don't resent others' successes. We all move at different rates. We all have different expressions of our holy purpose. Celebrate the other people, because someday that might be us. Yes, it might. Number 5, don't give up after the first failure. Dyson, he tried something like 5,472 times to create his vacuum cleaner. And now a lot of us are very grateful that he kept going. that he kept trying, that he kept to his commitment. Number 6, don't expect immediate results. Change takes time. And it takes God's time. And number 7, celebrate victories. Celebrate each step as if it was a complete action step, as a complete manifestation. My brother celebrated the day he could set up. My brother celebrated the day he could transfer by himself from the bed to the wheelchair. My brother celebrated his first twitch. Can you imagine? We twitch all the time. But he celebrated his first twitch, and now he's celebrating swimming. Celebrate the victories. These 7 characteristics carry us into an experience where the Father and I are one. So what are the dreams that are tugging in your mind? What are the dreams that are the cry of your heart? What are the dreams that your soul is wanting to bring into manifestation? Put your fingers up and say with me, please, the Father and I are one. The Father and I are one. One heart, one mind, one holy purpose, one expression of love, and one experience of peace. Let's sing Have Your Way as we come into a time of meditation.